It is the last European race of the season, round 15. 53 times round the quickest circuit on the calendar, Monza, always unpredictable and a notorious car breaker. It's the slippery surface that's the real danger today. Martin Brundle and James Allen await the pleasure of your company for the Italian Grand Prix. James.
Thank you very much indeed, Jim. You can see the heat haze, the sun glistening off the bonnet of the safety car, and I can tell you an hour ago it wasn't like that at all. There was rain falling down here from 7:30 this morning right up until about an hour before the start of this Grand Prix. But now it's more traditional Monza site that we have. Sunshine, that beautiful wide pit straight, reasonable sized crowd here, and a big question mark hanging over every driver in the field. Should I start on wet tyres this afternoon? There is rain, as you can see, down that main straight under the braking area for turn 1. They go from 220 miles an hour down to just 50 miles an hour in 3 seconds, over 4 Gs of deceleration. And if you've got slipperiness under the wheels, you can imagine what might happen. Should I go for the drive? Should I take a gamble in the first 3 or 4 laps of this race? Because undoubtedly it's not going to be long before a dry line emerges in that part of the circuit, and we already know that the second half of the lap is bone dry. The line is there. We've already seen tyre changes on the grid. Looking out of the window, I've seen both the BARs making changes. I've seen one of the Renaults and Kimi Raikkonen's McLaren as well. We don't know what's under the tyre blankets that they've put onto the cars, but either way, there might be 1 or 2 brave people out there just going for the dry tyres early on. Now, Ferrari don't really have that luxury. They're on the Bridgestone tyre here this afternoon, and their dry Bridgestone isn't quite so good. It's much more sensitive to a damp track than the Michelin. Remember Indianapolis last year? Michael Schumacher in real trouble against Kimi Raikkonen as the track dried out. Also Brazil last year. What a lottery that was in the wet, dry conditions. So, as I say, tremendously exciting afternoon in prospect. We've already had a momentous weekend. Rubens Barrichello setting the fastest ever pole position lap. There it is, 1 minute 20.089 for an average speed of 162 miles an hour around this circuit. Quite tremendous. He's been bridesmaid all year. Is this his opportunity to grab his first victory of the season? Alongside him, Juan Montoya, splitting the 2 Ferraris. Michael Schumacher made a mistake yesterday in qualifying. Montoya took advantage, and he said last night after qualifying he was going to go on the attack here this afternoon, as he did 12 months ago against Michael Schumacher. Lots of question marks. But Martin, certainly Montoya, the furthest forward of the Michelin runners. Will he take a gamble this afternoon? Certainly, as I say before, on a drying track that you'd have to favour the Michelins early on, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, especially as he's got Alonso right behind him on the grid, the fast-starting Renault, who surely is going to spoil Michael Schumacher's fun down to the first corner 2 in acceleration. We don't know yet about braking because, as you pointed out, it's going to be slippery down there. If I was a team manager, I'd have at least one of my cars on slicks, on the dry tyre. They're grooved, of course, now, but we still refer to them as slicks effectively. But if I was a driver, and these are such difficult days as a driver, I'd love to be down there every day of my life, except days like this where I probably wouldn't change my microphone for a steering wheel, because it is, as we said earlier in the programme, it's 0 to 0 stuff. It's dangerous. If the car lets go with not enough grip, with the skinny wings, and you can just go off and have the biggest accident, even in something like Curva Grande, James, where it's just a mild curve. The thing can get away from you and you can go straight off into the wall. Dry tyres on the Renault. Surely it's a dry tyre race, especially for the Michelin runners, because, as you say, their tyres work better in the slightly changeable conditions, and I don't think they've got such a good intermediate wet. But if those drivers that put inters on, if those people that put inters on go and take 20 seconds out of you in the first few laps as you're tippy-toeing around, they've got a pit stop in their pocket anyway. That's the challenge they're all facing, and that is the pole sitter on the intermediate tyre, and Michael Schumacher behind him on slick tyres. So Ferrari have gone 1-1. We haven't seen the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher yet, but I'm led to believe he is on the dry tyre. So, and that's going to be a pattern, I think, quite a long way down the grid. But look, it effectively looks totally dry on the start line. The problem is, as I pointed out on the grid walk, around the back under the trees.
Well, we'll see it for ourselves in a moment as the parade lap gets off. There's Montoya. He's on the dry tyres. You can see those arrow-shaped grooves on Barrichello's tyres. He's on the intermediate. He's going to have to make a pit stop fairly early on to change those, and that's a pit stop he's going to be giving away to Montoya, who would be licking his lips in anticipation. The question is, how will Schumacher's dry tyres handle these damp conditions? Are we looking down now towards turn one? Just look at how the track surface changes. It's more slippery looking, more greasy looking. And when the cars were going around on the parade lap, there is definitely still moisture there.
Well, Rubens probably got less to lose. We think he's lighter fueled than just about anybody on that grid. We'll find out later. But of course, he's then got to pit earlier. What surprised me, I've just heard that Jenson Button is on the intermediate tyre. The feeling in the paddock was that BAR had the best set-up car for these change of conditions. They seem to have given away some straight line speed in qualifying yesterday for more wing, and their car should be more sure-footed than just about anybody else on the grid. The other feeling is that Renault have got the skinniest amount of downforce, and they will be most challenged. So I'm surprised to hear that Jenson is on the wet tyre, but that doesn't look like it to me from that picture. So I think that piece of information coming up from the grid is not correct. Coulthard definitely is on the intermediate tyre there. The Toyota dry tyre for the Jag, dry for the Toyota, dry for the second Jag of Klein, and
dry for Fisichella, but intermediates on the Bridgestone on the Sauber there for his teammate Felipe Massa. So you see both the Bridgestone front-running teams have split their choices, with one driver on dries and one on intermediates. Very, very interesting situation, and of course a supreme test of the driver's skill, whatever tyres they're on, in the early stages of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, you've gone to the grid. I've been there many times. You've gone to the grid. The circuit looks 50-50. You've gone through all the paraphernalia you have to get through into the start procedure. You drive round on this lap, and it's what on earth happened? How? This is so completely different to what I saw just 18-20 minutes ago. And anybody out there on dry tyres is going to have a smile on his face.
Well, as Martin was saying, the feeling in the paddock that Rubens Barrichello carrying less fuel than his teammate Michael Schumacher and than the other cars around him. Indications possibly that it's perhaps only a couple of laps, so maybe Rubens has been a little bit compromised here. But we've seen in the past people going out on the wrong tyres. Remember Williams a few years ago at Monte Carlo, fairly wet track, went out with slicks and they were absolutely nowhere. Jacques Villeneuve, one of the drivers on that occasion. Very easy to get it wrong. 53 laps then of this majestic circuit, 190 miles in total, and this slightly damp conditions pretty likely to mean it won't be the fastest race in history. We had last year the fastest Grand Prix in history, and with rule changes coming next year to slow the cars by as much as 5 or 6 seconds a lap, there was a feeling if it had stayed dry today, this would be a fastest ever Grand Prix that might stay a record for a long time, but perhaps these damp conditions might spoil that. Well, we'll keep an eye out anyway.
If I was Coulthard now, I'd go in the pits. Start on slicks on the dry. I keep calling them slicks. Sorry. Start on the dry tyres from the pit lane, and I half expected Rubens to do the same thing. This is a dry tyre condition. That's
Nick Heidfeld. He had to qualify yesterday in the spare car, but he switched back to his original race car, which is why he's starting with the pits. And Coulthard has followed Martin Brundle's advice. Top of your screens, David Coulthard has dived into the pits to put on slick tyres and presumably change his refuelling as well. The rest of the field coming round to form up on the grid. Can't see anybody else having dived into the pits. Coulthard rolling the dice then. Starting 10th place originally, David Coulthard. There you can see the gap on the grid where he was.
Some problem. Apparently there's some problem fueling the car there of David Coulthard. No, they're not allowed to fuel it until the race is started, of course.
Absolutely. Okay, the anticipation builds, the excitement builds. Turn up the volume sound and enjoy as we go racing! Brilliant start by Barrichello. Look at Alonso fighting with Montoya. Montoya's left, Alonso in the middle. Alonso cuts out Schumacher. He's well and truly past a very cautious, you'd have to say, Juan Pablo Montoya. Schumacher down to 4th. Everybody's being very cautious. Schumacher has gained a position there, undoubtedly, in the chicane. He'll have to give that back to Montoya or face a penalty. Meanwhile, Raikkonen is on the attack. Schumacher is being very, very careful, and he lets those two cars go through. So Montoya jumps up, Raikkonen jumps up as well. And who's the next person that's going to be attacking Michael Schumacher? It's going to be the two BARs of Sato and Button.
And this is where the Bridgestone struggle, even after safety cars we saw in Spa, as Button crosses and makes a place in the chicane. Schumacher spins. Michael Schumacher spins. There's a Williams visit in the background there as well. Carnage then at the second chicane. They were super cautious into the first one and not quite enough of caution into the second chicane. Alonso leads the Grand Prix as Pizzonia recovers through the gravel trap.
Well, the computer's still showing Barrichello in the lead as the two BARs are side by side there going down towards the sky. We're looking at Alonso there with Montoya behind him. Schumacher has definitely spun. Jenson Button is a man on the move. Look at him attacking teammate Takuma Sato. There is Rubens Barrichello taking advantage in the early stages of the slippery conditions on those intermediate tyres. He leads the Grand Prix at Monza. Alonso second, Montoya third, Raikkonen fourth, Sato fifth, Michael Schumacher shown a 6 on the computer, but he seemed to be lower down as Olivier Panis retiring from the Grand Prix. He's had a terrible weekend with gearbox and engine problems, but his race only lasts one lap, and there you can see the top 8, and what a tremendous start by Felipe Massa, 16th on the grid. He is now up into 6th place.
Well, Ruben, sorry I said Alonso was in the lead because Barrichello's way out front there, but by 7 whole seconds. Michael Schumacher back in 15th place, so Barrichello at the moment romping away. And how long will it take for those Michelins to get fully up to operating temperature? I think it'll be sort of lap 2 or 3 before they should start eating back in to Rubens Barrichello. But we've seen this many times before, James. The operating window of that Bridgestone Inter is very high. They can go a long way in dry conditions, as Button was having a go at Raikkonen.
Yeah, tremendous looking move from Jenson Button. We've cut away for no reason at all to look at the Ferrari garage. We want to see what Jenson Button's doing because he's very racy in the early stage of this Grand Prix. He's got past him, and so has Felipe Massa. No, he hasn't. Raikkonen resists Massa, who's being tremendously aggressive in the early stages here. Fantastic performance by Massa from way back on the grid, but Jenson Button up now into 4th place ahead of Kimi Raikkonen. Barrichello leads Alonso by 7 seconds. Montoya 3rd, Button 4th, Raikkonen 5th, Sato is 6th. Massa as well in the mix as well.
So Rubens has just got to hope he can keep these tyres intact to get himself into the first pit stop window. Where do you think that's going to be, James? Lap 9, 10, something like that? Or maybe as early as 8, and he can still keep on a 2-stop strategy without carrying too much weight at any point in the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Martin. And I think he's probably carrying 11 or 12 laps worth of fuel. He'd like to get a bit further into the Grand Prix, 8, 9 if he can, before making a stop. It's all about the gap he can make as the Massa just trying a little bit too hard there into turn 1. We ride on board with the man who is down in 14th place, Michael Schumacher. He's looking at the back of Giancarlo Fisichella in the other Sauber. That shows you how much progress Massa's made. Here's the start again.
And then Michael Schumacher then super cautious. Look, he's now back into 4th place. Alonso on the attack. It's Barrichello with the best tyres at this stage. He's got the confidence to go in. Look, doing pedestrian speed. Schumacher jumps across the second chicane, gained a place, but gave it back to Montoya immediately. On board with the Renault then. And one day he's going to be popped up in the air, flying in the sky, because he's always pulling that stunt on the at the start of the Grand Prix because of the brilliant characteristics of that car away from the line. But it works out yet again for Alonso. And this then is Schumacher spinning out, and I think others then in sympathy following suit. Michael Schumacher is down in 14th place as we speak.
Yes, and poor Olivier Panis was a victim of that. You could see he was one of the people that fell foul as Button now has a look at Montoya. Martin Brundle mentioned how the BAR was set up in qualifying yesterday a little bit more towards the dry settings, and he's obviously making use of that, Jenson Button, attacking Juan Montoya. And right. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso is getting the hammer down. 1:27.9 that last lap. It seems as though we're getting into the territory now where the dry tyres, he's now almost 2 seconds a lap faster than Rubens Barrichello, starting to haul him in. Barrichello's going to have to start thinking about changing tyres. Yeah,
it's the point we talked about. It was lap 3 and the dry tyres are up to temperature and the driver is up to full confidence and knowledge level. And we should see Alonso very quickly hauling Barrichello in now, and the smile will be disappearing off Ruby's face as Montoya, on a very strange line, compromises himself, gets it out of shape, and Button takes him as if it's candy from a baby. And Montoya, I don't know why he was going so defensive into that corner. Button was nowhere near overtaking him.
No, he certainly wasn't going to try it, was he? He was quite a long way back. You can see it was still quite slippery all the way through that section. That's the section which will take the longest to dry out here this afternoon. Montoya lost momentum then through the Lesmo bends, and you can see that Raikkonen, who managed to keep his average speed up, is now right behind Montoya, who is building back up to speed. Teammates next year, of course, within McLaren, and has Raikkonen got the momentum to get past Montoya in the run down to Parabolica? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, Barrichello led by 6.6 seconds so far on this current lap. He's 2.1 seconds slower, and over the line they go. It's nearly 4 seconds by the end of the lap. Alonso took 4 seconds out of him, and no wonder he'll be past him on this lap. And Barrichello then, it hasn't worked. He hasn't got in to a sensible pit stop winner. Don't think he's out of the equation altogether today, but that seriously made his afternoon difficult.
Going to cost him 26 seconds to come in the pits and get back out again. He will return probably somewhere around Gianmaria Bruni in 11th place. So both Ferraris will be out of the points in the early stages of the Grand Prix, and a lot of work to do from here for the team which clinched the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship recently, and for whom this weekend was supposed to be a celebration party. At the moment, the man in the pound seats is Alonso. Button looks also very aggressive, 5 seconds behind the Frenchman, behind the Spaniard, as he comes up now to grab the lead off Rubens Barrichello. We cut away to look at the battle between, here we go, Alonso then for the lead in the Renault. It's candy from a baby, straight through into Ascari. Rubens Barrichello has to give way, and he will have to come into the pits, because that is the lead well and truly gone.
Yeah, it's like trying to nail jelly to the wall when you're driving on tyres that have gone off. The rubber, the heat is generated by the rubber moving around. As soon as those tread blocks start moving, you're struggling. This is Coulthard fighting with Michael Schumacher for 13th place, and we cut away just at the juicy bit. So I'll keep an eye on that one. We don't know how that ended up. Alonso does now lead the Grand Prix.
Ted Kravitz has news for us.
Rubens Barrichello comes into the pits. Those intermediate tyres are so worn down. He puts on the dries. He's about 6 laps too soon for his first stop. There he goes. What's the time on that? 6.9. That's not a bad stop, but he is seriously compromised. David Coulthard, while you're down there, might well have a problem at his next stop with his fuel flap. He couldn't open it when he was refueling in the pits.
Okay, then now let's restock here, and Alonso was 5.5 ahead of Button. Massa pits with, he must have had the intermediates on. So Alonso, how is he doing? He's quicker than Button in the first sector anyway, so he's stretching that lead. Montoya up to 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, Sato will be up to 5th, then Trulli, Clean, Webber, Fisichella will be 10th.
date of the Italian Grand Prix. It's been all action at the start. Here's Gianmaria Bruni coming in for tyres. That's Giancarlo Fisichella. He is in 10th place with Rubens Barrichello in front of him, Michael Schumacher and Antonio Pizzonia behind him. Fernando Alonso leads the Grand Prix. Button is second, Montoya third, Raikkonen fourth, Sato fifth, and Klein in 6th place. And Louise Goodman is with Olivier Panis, the only man to have retired from the Grand Prix so far.
Yeah, we saw a lot of drivers scrambling through those chicanes on the opening laps. Unfortunately, Olivier, you didn't make it out again.
No, well, on the second chicane, I'm quite disappointed for all the team because we take a good choice to start on slick. But I'm very close to Pizzonia and he turned like normal. It's very difficult on the wet. And I take some understeer and I hit him with the front nose and I broke it. And after that, I park on the gravel, but I don't arrive to going out.
Like you say, big disappointment. Thanks, Olivier.
And nose disappearing off the Sauber there, and Michael Schumacher then moves up past Fisichella into 10th place. Interestingly, Rubens Barrichello, despite the stop, despite the blistered intermediate tyres, now back out and in front of Michael Schumacher. So damage limitation was done there by the Ferrari team. Barrichello compromised but still in play.
Yeah, but of course he's taken fuel on, so he's going to go much deeper into the Grand Prix than Michael Schumacher, who has yet to come in and take on the first fuel load of the afternoon. So Barrichello, you'd have to say, looking very strong indeed. And you have to put your heart goes out to Felipe Massa, who's done a stunning job in the early part of the Grand Prix. Got his nose knocked off. Here he is in the pits to change it, and all that good work undone. Massa pitting from 18th. And well, he's got a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, that's a replay of his teammate Fisichella being overtaken for 10th place by Michael Schumacher.
Yes, just nicely out of the slipstream. Got the faster car, probably better stability under braking. Fisichella not troubling the Ferrari there. Michael even able to pull back onto line. Massa losing his nose was about 100% his fault, I would say.
Well, it's interesting because Fernando Alonso leading this Grand Prix on lap 10 by 6.1 seconds from Jenson Button, who on that last lap was over a second faster than Alonso. Button driving very, very well in these early stages. He's just a second ahead of Juan Montoya on the racetrack, who's third. At the moment, Kimi Raikkonen is in 4th place. He's 1.8 seconds behind Montoya. And then a further 5 seconds back from them is Takuma Sato. Almost 10 seconds behind them, the Jaguar of Christian Klein, who's going absolutely brilliantly in 6th. Having started 14th on the grid, the man who finished 6th at Spa 2 weeks ago, once again having another very strong run, ahead of teammate Mark Webber, who is in 7th. Trulli down into 8th place, but he's just set the fastest first sector of this lap of the Grand Prix so far. And Ted Kravitz has some news for us about Trulli.
And down at Renault, we think that's because Jarno is coming in this lap. He's been so much slower than Alonso, and we believe they are on similar fuel loads. His engineer, I've been into Renault, his engineer's been telling him to get on with it. But you know, Jarno's head's down at the moment. I wonder, because he hasn't reported any problems. Oh, it's Alonso who comes into the pits. Alonso who comes in. I wonder if Trulli's head's just gone down completely and he's lost interest.
The race leader pits then on lap 11, Fernando Alonso. So Jenson Button leads the Italian Grand Prix at Monza in the BAR Honda, with Juan Montoya right behind him, who has just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. He has closed to within half a second of Jenson Button. There he is. That's what half a second looks like at almost 200 miles an hour as Button comes down to the Variante Roger, the Roger chicane, the second chicane on this lap, and a real dogfight here in prospect between Jenson Button, Juan Montoya, and just behind them, Kimi Raikkonen.
Yes, I don't know if Coulthard's had a problem. He's back down to 14, but very tight at the front. Truly, all of a sudden, has found pace. He was the fastest man of anybody in the first sector last time around, so his performance very much up and down in this Grand Prix. Montoya is the man with the most confidence at this stage.
Just looking at a replay there into turn 1 of Montoya putting a lap on the Minardi. I tell you what's interesting, Martin. Michael Schumacher is now tucked right up behind Rubens Barrichello. The gap between them on the last timing point was 0.1 of a second, and Schumacher will be desperate to get past his teammate, who's carrying more fuel at this stage of the Grand Prix than Michael is. Schumacher will undoubtedly have a pit stop coming up in the next few laps as Jenson Button crosses the line once again in the lead here at Monza. Fastest lap of the Grand Prix to him, 1:23.0. And there you go, Michael Schumacher going for the lead in a lighter car, makes it stick.
Yep, that's to pass his teammate. That's for 9th place. So Michael Schumacher then up into P9. But as you pointed out, James, he has got a lot more. Barrichello, that is, has got a lot more fuel. Button does a new fastest lap of the race and stretches his lead by half a second. It's 1.1 now. Raikkonen's 2.9 behind them. Then Sato quietly minding his own business in 4th place, going well. Webber is 5th. That's Klein, who pitted from 6th. Alonso rejoined. He now moves up to 6th. Barrichello then is down in 10th, but he's already made a pit stop. So we've had Klein, Alonso, Barrichello and Bruni are the only 4 drivers to make hot lap pit stops.
This is Pitsonia and Barrichello. I saw them very close together there. This is a replay of what happened. You can see Pitsonia making a bit of a Horlicks of the first chicane, and Barrichello, well, he was in front of him anyway at the start of the lap, so Barrichello in 10th place, Michael Schumacher up to 9th and going like a rocket. He just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. We're now into the 1:22 with Michael Schumacher, a 22.7, and he's set the fastest first sector. He is absolutely flying here in 9th place, a few laps before his own first pit stop, and we're going to see a real Michael Schumacher fight back here this afternoon. Meanwhile, at the front, you can see the leaders. Jenson Button on lap 13. The margin as they cross the line, almost a second. Raikkonen just keeping a watching brief in 3rd place. Sato dropping back a little bit, 8.9 seconds now, as Button and Montoya go toe-to-toe at the front.
Let's watch the end of this. It's not going to be on screen. You're watching 1st and 2nd place. Raikkonen struggling to hang on to them by about half second a lap. Michael Schumacher does a 21.9. That's a 10th off the lap record in race conditions. That's how grippy and dry it is out there now, as Mark Webber pits from what was 5th place.
And that means that this is the perfect moment in this Grand Prix to be making a pit stop. The track has definitely come to fully now to the dry tyres. They're absolutely flying, and well, this is the moment to be doing it. So everybody that took the gamble on the dries at the start, that gamble has paid off handsomely for Button, for Montoya, for Raikkonen and Sato, and particularly for those Michelin runners.
Okay, that'll be Massa then passing somebody. That's Sato running extremely wide, didn't gain any time on that, but Baumgartner was penalised by 1 second in qualifying for using that easy apex in turn 2 there. A crank of wing change, we don't know if it's up or down on the Jaguar, probably down I would imagine, if to go back to drier conditions, and Ted is down there.
And McLaren with a serious problem for Kimi Raikkonen. Steve Hallam, his engineer, is looking very worried. Here he comes into the pits. They've cleared a space for him in the garage. Oh, what a shame. Kimi Raikkonen in to retire. A lot of smoke coming out of the back of that car. Oh, a lot of smoke coming out of there. I wonder if that's heat, but the mechanics ready with fire extinguishers for the back of that engine. But another disappointing after the joy of Belgium. A terrible weekend for Kimi Raikkonen.
The 8th retirement from 15 Grand Prix for Kimi Raikkonen. And, well, we know what that little momentary anger that Mark Arnold, his trainer, talked about in the build-up programme. He'll certainly be feeling that now as Pitsonia battles with Rubens Barrichello, takes the position. He's, of course, still yet to make a pit stop. The car very light. Rubens Barrichello full of fuel. Zonta into the pits there from 10th place in the Toyota.
So what's pivotal here, I think, Michael Schumacher's the fastest man on the track, but he's 27.4 seconds behind Jenson Button. Neither of them have stopped yet. Michael Schumacher had the spin, then he didn't have enough grip, although he's fastest man now. So Button and Montoya have a full pit stop in their pocket. So the Ferrari team have got a big job to do this afternoon if they're going to win this Grand Prix. Button pits from the lead at the end of lap 15.
Yep, Jenson Button comes into the pits. We're not seeing him. We're looking at the pit stop of Zolt Baumgartner. There is Jenson Button. And obviously that will drop him down. We'll be interested to see where he comes out. Be very close to this scrap here, I would fancy. Montoya takes the lead then on lap 15 from Sato. Raikkonen has retired from the Grand Prix. We're not watching Jenson Button stop, but we'll see him where he emerges. There he is, just in front of this ding-dong then, between Alonso and Michael Schumacher. That's Button, that's Michael Schumacher, takes the place from Fernando Alonso. Schumacher then up into 2nd place, because Montoya has been in the pits as well.
So pivotal there for Jenson Button. He managed, as we said, he got a pit stop in his pocket, he just got back out in front. So the big question now is how much further can Michael Schumacher go in this race? And it does rather tell a story of of yesterday's qualifying, doesn't it? Michael Schumacher then's gone a long way into this race before needing fuel.
Certainly has. We speculated he might have been carrying fuel. We did see him make a mistake in the Parabolica, those of you watching with us, but fuel clearly part of the reason why Michael was slow. Button then has a heavy car, just had a pit stop, new tyres as well. Michael Schumacher in the sweet spot, the car is light, a stop is imminent, the tyres are well worn in. He's got to try and pass Jenson Button. He wants to attack and make as much space up as he can. Will he go for the lead, or is he going to make his pit stop? Is Ross Brawn going to bring him in, knowing that passing Button might be quite tricky in the current conditions? Button driving absolutely beautifully here this afternoon, and we've got lap traffic, both the Minardis there to get around.
And critically, Schumacher just makes it on the entry to Parabolica past the lap traffic. And will he pit this time? Will he peel off right? Yes, indeed he does. So steaming then into the pit lane.
And Louise is with Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, Kimi, a fiery end to the Grand Prix. Big disappointment for our featured team.
Yeah, we had some problem with the engine, so I needed to stop.
What were the conditions like out there beforehand? How quickly did it dry out?
We're still a little bit wet, but it was okay.
Thanks, Kimi.
Not looking forward to talking to Ron Dennis later on. He's with us on the pit wall through the Grand Prix. But Kimi giving the team quite a lashing in the press, or reported to be anyway, for lack of reliability. And he'll be leaving the track another unhappy man.
So Michael Schumacher comes out behind Mark Webber there, you can see in the Jaguar, and Webber was in 10th place. So that puts Schumacher back 10th in this Grand Prix, around about 26 seconds behind the race leader, Jenson Button, at this stage of the Grand Prix. So Button at the front, Alonso, Montoya, Michael Schumacher has been into the pits as well. Fast and furious stuff here at Monza. Lap 18 of the 53-lap Italian Grand Prix. We've got, what, 3 guys who could win this Grand Prix this afternoon. Jenson Button going like a train at the front. He is 3 seconds in front of Fernando Alonso. Juan Montoya is in 3rd place. He's 1.7 seconds behind. And Rubens Barrichello, he could still win this Grand Prix as well. Ferrari, he is 4th, 3.4 seconds behind Juan Montoya. Then it's Giancarlo Fisichella in the Sauber, who's had a terrific start to the Grand Prix, but has yet to make his first pit stop. He's the only man yet to make a stop. And Takuma Sato is in 6th place in the BAR. David Coulthard 7th, Mark Webber 8th, ahead of Michael Schumacher, who's right up behind the Jaguar driver at the moment. But critically, Martin, Michael Schumacher 28.5 seconds behind race leader Jenson Button, and he's on an identical strategy, it seems.
Yes, you'd have to say it's a question of how far Michael can get up the pack today rather than can he win the race. I think there are 4 drivers in this actually. Button, Alonso, Montoya and Barrichello currently lapping around the same pace, 7.5 seconds adrift, the 4 of them. Fisichella's just behind in 5th but has yet to stop, so he's a little bit out of sequence. Sato's 6th, going quite well but needs to pick up his pace if he wants to join and make it 5 potential winners, but still only 10.9 seconds, and that is Michael Schumacher trying to get up the inside of Mark Webber into the first Lesmo. Webber having absolutely none of it, and Michael Schumacher then his relentless pursuit of the leading pack. Remember, he spun on the first lap, didn't have enough grip on the dry tyres on a damp track and really struggled, lost a lot of pace. Now he's coming back, but has been held up behind Webber's Jaguar, and Webber just driving the wheels off that thing. Good stuff.
Certainly is. Certainly the first Lesmo, not a place you see many people trying to attempt an overtaking manoeuvre. A lot of people thinking, having won his 7th World Championship, Schumacher might not be taking too many risks this afternoon, but they don't know Michael Schumacher very well if they suggest that. There's Fisichella then, from 6th place in the Sauber, last of the contenders to make a pit stop. 8.4 for him, back out on track. This lap 20 out of the 53 laps here at Monza this afternoon, and really exciting start to the Grand Prix. We had rain this morning, a drying track, certainly damp in some places. This was one of the places, the first chicane, as Michael Schumacher now with acceleration of that Ferrari engine superior to the Jaguar. This is coming down to the area of the Curva Grande then, and into the second chicane.
Now Webber's got to stay left. He's got to make Michael go the long way round, and then parks it right in the middle of the racetrack. Nice stuff, but jumps across the chicane. Michael will get a good run out of there, and surely he'll now take the place. Webber just too busy watching Schumacher and braked a touch too late. He had the corner covered, and he really did the job twice and then lost out. And of course, just behind him is Pitzonia. That's for position 2. So this is 8th, 9th and 10th. Coulthard is 7th. He pitted at the end of the warm-up lap. We don't know how much fuel he put on the car. And will he go for a long run this afternoon and get the McLaren well into the points? We'll see where Fisichella fed back into the system as well. And there we go then. That is Webber having covered the bases on the way in, slow on the way out of the second chicane. And Michael Schumacher actually puts his hand up and says, thanks. I don't think Mark Webber intended to let him through.
Well, Ron Dennis is joining us, the McLaren Meet the Team this weekend. Ron, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, a tricky decision at the start of the Grand Prix, which tyres to go with?
Yeah, we were a little bit overcautious, but I think we've switched our strategy. Well, we have switched our strategy to take advantage. You can see David's pace, and pretty clear that we only have to stop once, so it's not too bad shape.
What's your overview then, Ron, of the strategies of everybody? Clearly Button is on the same sort of strategy as Michael Schumacher, but the front runners, how many men can win this race in your view?
Well, it's still pretty open. I think Michael's got a hell of a lot of work to do and a lot of cars to pass, so be a pretty impressive drive, but we've seen some pretty impressive drives from him, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility. But I don't think the race has settled down enough yet to know exactly the outcome. But as you can see, the pace is all pretty consistent, and but the Ferrari's starting to pick up the pace, so they're going to be a threat, maybe even Barrichello.
Ron, can I just backtrack on something you said? I know the cars are whizzing past you now, but have you moved David Coulthard back to the old-style Monza strategy of long run and one stop? So if that's the case, he's doing low 123s at the moment. He's looking pretty handy, isn't he?
That's quite right.
OK, so that's something to watch out for as the Grand Prix unfolds. What happened to Kimi Räikkönen's car?
We had an engine problem. We lost water pressure, so the outcome was inevitable. In these conditions, engine blowing up, on a slippery circuit, not a good thing to give a driver, so we decided to retire the car.
Well, thanks for joining us, Ron. Hopefully we'll speak to you a little bit later on in the Grand Prix, see how David Coulthard is progressing. Ron Dennis there, the boss of the McLaren Mercedes team. As you said, we've been enjoying Meet the Team with them this weekend, seeing behind the scenes, getting to know them a little bit, a few of the faces, the backroom boys. It's been absolutely terrific. And Ron Dennis giving us the benefit of his insights there from the pit wall. David Coulthard then, we saw them earlier in the Grand Prix, bring him in, start the race from the pit lane. That meant he was on the right tyres, the dry tyres for the start of the Grand Prix, and full of fuel as Pitsonia nicks that 8th place away from Mark Webber. And we will keep a very close eye on David Coulthard now. He's 17.5 seconds behind race leader Jenson Button, but they both have only one more stop to make in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, I hope they show a replay of that. I think Pitsonia just nailed him into the second Lesmo, which is unusual to have enough acceleration off the first Lesmo in a very short straight to get up the inside there. And Barrichello on the move as well now. Coulthard doing 23.1, that's very fast too. He's 17 seconds away from Button. Of course, this is how they used him. Johnny Herbert won the race. I think he was the first one. Benetton were the first to understand how to do that. So little tyre degradation here. The weight penalty's not so high. Just get out there and keep running as long and as far as you can. That changed when you had to run your race fuel for qualifying. So they went shorter and shorter. So, and Coulthard now fastest man of anybody so far in the Grand Prix in Sector 1. He's on a charge.
Certainly is. And as Ron Dennis was saying, critically, at this stage of the Grand Prix, the pace is very even. All of the front 7 cars are all lapping in the mid to low 1 minute 23s. There is nothing to choose between them, and the gap between Button leading and Coulthard in 6th place is 17 seconds, but from 1st to 5th is under 10 seconds. A lot of racing still to go here at Monza. 26 of the Italian Grand Prix. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you, and we've got 4 seconds separating the top 4 cars. There they are: Button, Alonso, Montoya, Rubens, Barrichello. It's that close, and we're not even at the halfway stage yet in this Grand Prix. Jenson Button then leading by 1.4. Montoya is second behind him, Barrichello as well. They're all on the same sort of pace at the moment. But, well, you'd have to say that nothing much to choose between them. David Coulthard, a man well worth watching as well. He's on a completely different strategy from the rest of them. He's in 6th place at the moment, 14 seconds behind the race leader. And he's on a one-stop strategy here this afternoon, which could be very interesting. Michael Schumacher, 11 seconds behind Coulthard, making no real impression into him. That last lap, half a second, but generally speaking, it's been about 11 seconds for the last few laps. So really intriguing stuff here at Monza.
Yes, all the key runners have got to stop one more time. Coulthard, for his first time in race conditions, he stopped at the end of the warm-up lap, took a penalty really effectively off the line. And but we've got 4 different chassis and engine combinations in the top 4, 2 different tyre manufacturers, and then nip and tuck on lap times. They're weaving around a little bit. Sometimes it's Button, then it's Alonso that's fastest. 4 seconds between the pair of them, the 4 of them, sorry. Sato managing to keep himself in touch, and Coulthard's got the gap down to 14.9 seconds now, and lapping faster than just about all of them. So he has got a chance of coming up into sort of the podium zone. Be a struggle to win it though from where he's at, but going very quickly. Coulthard pits then for his first stop of the afternoon.
Yep, this is it then. David Coulthard comes in from 6th place. Where will this drop him back to? There's a battle going on between Fisichella and Webber. Will he be anywhere near them as he comes out? Don't forget, he's taking a lot of fuel on here to take him right to the finish of the race. A long stop, 12 seconds.
Yes, and now, of course, he's got a very heavy car. He'll be heavier at this point in the Grand Prix than any of the other runners on 2 stock. So that'll slow him down, and probably 2-3 seconds longer taking the fuel on board. He needs a good clear run out of the pits. Clean coming up behind him. Can Coulthard keep in front of him? Because that'll be crucial for him while his car's fat and while he gets back up to speed. He looks as if he did that. So Coulthard now got to drive for his life if he wants to score some solid points this afternoon.
Just to give you an idea, he's got fuel to get him to the end of the race, whereas these front runners here are 5 or maybe 6 laps away from their next pit stop. That's the huge difference in weight. Those cars running almost down to empty and fuel. Coulthard absolutely full of it. Ted, what can you tell us?
Down at BAR, James, and there's a bit of concern, I can tell you. Jenson Button is slow. It might be because he's getting some traffic. His last at 23.9. Sato's last at 23.0. He's going to have to pick up this pace if he's to win this one.
Yes, we know that BAR ran a little bit more wing in qualifying, probably hurting them now in full dry race conditions. But of course, as Ted pointed out, Sato is lapping faster than the leader. He's just 6.8 seconds behind Jenson Button now. So Sato's hauling himself up to make it 5 contenders for this Grand Prix this afternoon. We may just see him in the background. We did indeed. Sato coming into play.
Certainly is. 6.8 then behind the race leader. And this is really exciting stuff here at Monza. We've had a few good Grand Prix this year, haven't we? Often when there's a little bit of drizzle in the air, that kind of thing. But usually also these fast racetracks, they seem to breed good racing. We should go here to these sort of places more often. Look how close they are now. That's the top 3 in this Grand Prix as we approach the halfway stage. Top 4, top 5.
Yes, and of course it's when you've got less grip. So if they take 25-30% of the downforce away next year under the regulations, it can only help us with more interesting racing. Or you've got to have random sprinkling on the corners. They'll have to choose one of those 2.
That's a very good point. In fact, talking to Pat Simmons earlier on from the Renault team, he said, listen, just to give you some sort of idea, the downforce level we're running here, which is the lowest level of the year, these very flat wings, that's what we're going to have, roughly speaking, next year with the new rule changes. It'll be more or less this level of downforce at places like Monaco, at Silverstone, at Barcelona. They certainly will be sliding around a lot more next year.
Yeah, that's until they spend 20 million in the wind tunnel over the next 2 years and haul it all back again somehow. But that's the job of keeping the difficult job of trying to slow these cars down. Jenson Button would like to speed his up at the moment. Barrichello was very fast on a 22.5. Michael Schumacher is on a 121.8. And to put that in perspective, Button did a 123.2. So he's leading the race. He's 1.3 seconds slower than 6th place Michael Schumacher. So, as Ted pointed out, Button struggling for raw pace at this stage of the Grand Prix on lap 29.
Yeah, meanwhile, Michael Schumacher sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, 1:21.899, pushing very hard. He's in clear air, 15 seconds worth of it between himself and Takuma Sato. Does he have enough to close the gap? But it's so close at the front here, with just a second between Button and Alonso, 1.5 between Button and Montoya, and just 3 seconds between Button and Barrichello in 4th place. It is definitely going to come down to who can go the furthest on the fuel, and you'd have to say Jenson Button, his first stop was on lap 14. That was a lap after Montoya's and 4 laps after Fernando Alonso. So we're not sure exactly how much fuel they all took on board. That's going to be absolutely crucial as to who comes in first and therefore who gets track position through the pit stops. Barrichello in.
He did, and Button in the 1:22s and faster than Alonso on that lap. But we're watching Barrichello in the pits for his second scheduled stop. And that's quite early, really, isn't it? I thought it would be nearer sort of 32, 34 before we'd see Barrichello. Of course, remembering, correcting myself, really, because he had to pit very early last time round because of he had the wrong tyres on for the track conditions.
Yep, came in on lap 5. Rubens Barrichello, he had the wet tyres on. We had a damp start to this Grand Prix. And he was really the only of one of the front runners that opted to go with wet tyres at the start. All of these guys went with the dry tyres. So too did Michael Schumacher. But his Bridgestones didn't like the damp conditions down at the first and second chicanes as much as the Michelins. And he had a spin in the second chicane, which dropped him all the way down to 15th place, Michael Schumacher. But since then, he's been like a raging bull, and he's got himself back up into 6th place. But somehow you just can't, even he can't close up a gap as big as that. He's got it down to 21 seconds, though, the gap between himself and Jenson Button. But he's on the same strategy as all of the front runners. There isn't anything that Ross Brawn can do strategy-wise for him. It's all got to come from Michael Schumacher's right foot.
It's good news to see Coulthard straight into the 123s despite the heavy fuel load. So expect him to be cruising in to strong points later on in the Grand Prix, given reliability. Button leads by 1.5 seconds from Alonso. Montoya just half a second drift in 3rd place. Sato pretty stationary at 6.8 seconds behind Button in 4th place.
Lap 33 of the Italian Grand Prix. Jenson Button leading by 1.7 seconds from Fernando Alonso. Montoya is third, Sato fourth. Michael Schumacher is ahead of teammate Rubens Barrichello in fifth place. Barrichello sixth, Pitsonia seventh, Fisichella eighth. There's Mark Webber pitting from ninth place, but we've just had a fire in the pits. The Jaguar boys a little bit circumspect putting the fuel in, not surprisingly, because this is what happened a moment ago.
Yes, that's next door to them in the Minardi team. A lot of fuel spilled, the mechanics laying it. Bruni inside the car, taking quite a lot of heat there, and they knew straight away there was fuel. They did actually carry on and refuel it and get ready to fire him up, but the driver said, I've had enough. Louise is down there as we see Alonso and Montoya pit from second and third place. Let's just hang on to this, because this is a very, and Sato too out of fourth, so it's a mechanics race then. There's Sato taking to his garage, he's further down the pit lane. Who's going to get away further? They should all need the same amount of fuel to get to the end of the race. Alonso out first, then Montoya, and Sato yet to leave the garage. He does so now.
Well, that's very interesting. They go out then in the order in which they came in. There goes Pitsonia. He was in seventh place before the pit stop, so that's where they're filtering back in. Meanwhile, fastest man on the racetrack, aware that the racers are having this. There's Pitsonia. Alonso trying to get past him. Schumacher's aware of what's going on in front of him. He's just set a lap of 1:21.535. He's got down now to within 17 seconds of Jenson Button, and he knows he can try and capitalise now as these guys, Montoya, Alonso and Sato, made their stops.
Now, importantly there, Alonso has cleared and then got it all wrong. He's got to stay in front of Pitsonia, and he knows it, because Pitsonia can interrupt his race. Button will be delighted to see that, because Alonso then, he made it past Pitsonia, but then Pitsonia came back at him, and that will compromise his pace. An important part of the Grand Prix, with Montoya just behind him. Zonta pits in the Toyota, and Louise is still waiting to talk to us.
Yeah, poor Giacomo Bruni, very nasty incident. He's lying down on the floor in the Minardi garage, obviously in some discomfort, coughing a lot. He's obviously ingested either some fuel or some fumes from the fuel or the fire extinguisher, but he's got doctors with him, he's got physios with him, so I'll give you an update on his progress as soon as I can.
There we go, Jenson Button has a pit stop. That's the crucial one. It all went so well for BAR. Where does he come out?
Well, he's cruising down the pit lane at the moment. You can see there is the other front runners, and that moment when Pitsonia got out in front of Alonso. There he is. There is Alonso. There is Montoya. Button is back safely in front of the pair of them. Michael Schumacher is also in front of them. He is 11 seconds behind. He was 11 seconds behind Jenson Button before those stops. So very, there is Michael Schumacher now, showing as being in the lead. He has still to make his second stop of the afternoon. He was 11 seconds behind Button beforehand. He's not going to be able to make that up in a pit stop. However many laps of fuel he's got in the car now, it's going to certainly be interesting, these next few laps for him. He's going to be absolutely flying to try and close that margin down, get himself as far up the race as he possibly can. But with an 11-second margin that Button had over him before his second stop, you'd have to say that Button looks safe at the moment from the onslaught of Michael Schumacher.
Well, as Ron Dennis said, Michael Schumacher needs a great race, and we've seen a lot of those. He is flying. I think he's about to set a new lap record if he doesn't pit at the end of this lap. Schumacher absolutely on it. There's his teammate Barrichello, and that tells you Michael's ahead of him on the track, but with another stop to do, as we see Button then passing traffic, and Pitsonia is in between, and Pitzonia's got to stop, as does Michael Schumacher again this afternoon. Schumacher does a 1:21.3. It is a new lap record by half a second as Pitsonia makes his second stop. The red flashing eye in the distance is somebody who's forgotten to switch off their rain light, and Schumacher through Curva Grande then, he's leading the race by, let's see, 15 seconds over Barrichello and Button, and of course, that, what do we think he needs? 25 seconds for a stop. We got a Jordan in the gravel trap.
Yeah, it's going to be, well, as I said, it was 11 seconds Button had on Michael Schumacher before Button stopped. There you can see Giorgio Pantano retiring that Jordan from 16th place. It's hard to see, unless Michael Schumacher's got several laps of fuel in this car, how he can possibly take the time out of Jenson Button. But Rubens Barrichello, well, he pitted on lap 5 for just over 6 seconds as we look at some wing being put into that car of Antonio Pitsonia. And Barrichello pitted again on lap 29, again for 6 seconds. So I think Barrichello's going to have to stop again, isn't he? Ferrari are ready in the pit lane for one of their two drivers. Michael Schumacher absolutely scorching around this racetrack at the moment. Which one of the two drivers is going to come in? Jenson Button is in third place. He'll grab second then as Michael Schumacher comes into the pits.
Ringing it out down to the speed limit line. If he goes over that too fast, car number 15 already has a penalty. That's clean in the Jaguar for speeding in the pit lane, almost certainly, because you can't get it. You're coming off this track straight into the pit lane. You're doing best part of 200 miles an hour in this supreme machine. You have to get it down to just 100 kilometers per hour, and it just feels like you're dragging an old ferry boat home then when it's on its rev limiter, its pit lane limiter. Michael feeds out back then into the BARs.
Yeah, it's Sato. He's behind Sato, crucially, because Jenson Button, who's Michael Schumacher, there you are, side by side with Takuma Sato, and Sato has to give up the place. He had a bad drive out of the first chicane. Jenson Button's gone through already, so has Fernando Alonso, but Takuma Sato couldn't quite make it, and Michael Schumacher critically has got out in front of Button's teammate.
And that is crucial too, because remember, Sato was hauling himself up into the equation, so surely Michael Schumacher's done the same. Supreme laps, very, very fast, good pit stop. Michael with a fast car underneath him. Well, we better add his name to the list of potential winners now, James.
Yeah, it's growing all the time. 17 laps to go here. We've got lap traffic, we've got overtaking at the front and at the back. It's all going up at Monza, and Ted's got news for us.
Down at BAR, they're absolutely gutted about that because they needed Takuma Sato to help Jenson Button win this race. They were going to try and do that at USA this year. It's perfectly legal, but it hasn't happened. Bad luck, Taku.
And let's take a look at Michael Schumacher's laps then as he gets back up to speed after the stop. Tremendous confidence and grip he's got, hasn't he? Out of the pit lane, look at the advantage he's got over Sato already. Michael Schumacher absolutely flying. He did a 1:45, including his pit stop. That's 2 to 3 seconds faster than the bulk of them have been doing. So Schumacher just eating into their advantage.
Well, I don't know if he's going to win this race, but it's certainly one of his best drives. Michael Schumacher, having spun it in the early stages, is really putting on a fight back here at Monza. Fisichella pits then from 7th place as we take our breath. At the moment, Rubens Barrichello is leading on lap 38 by 12 seconds from Jenson Button in the BAR, but we believe Barrichello, well, we're sure Barrichello has to stop again. Jenson Button then is in 2nd place. Alonso is 3rd, 1.5 seconds behind Jenson Button, with Michael Schumacher just 6 seconds behind Fernando Alonso. So in other words, well, the gap was 11 seconds between Button and Schumacher before that second round of pit stops. It's now down to 7 seconds. 3 of them came from a faster out lap. Obviously, some of it came from an in lap, but a lot of it came from those laps up to Schumacher's stop. Absolutely stunning driving here by Michael Schumacher. And, well, it's certainly put him into the equation. Sato is down to 5th. Montoya, who was in the top 3 for most of the first half of this Grand Prix, now drops into 6th place. Fisichella we've seen just making a pit stop. And what about David Coulthard here, you say? He's on a one-stopper. How's he playing out? Well, he's 36 seconds behind the race leader, just 22 behind Jenson Button, and lapping, well, his pace dropping off a little bit in comparison with the front runners at the moment, but still he's in the hunt for some good points here this afternoon.
Barrichello then, I'm not quite as sure as you he's got to stop again, but it seems virtually certain, doesn't it, that Barrichello, we think he took 6.3 seconds of fuel on board on lap 29. If that time is correct, then he has got to come in again. But his lead was 14.5 seconds. He was 2.5 seconds faster than Jenson Button, who once again struggling at this stage of the race for raw pace. Alonso close up behind. Barrichello first then, Button second, Alonso third, Michael Schumacher fourth, just 5 seconds adrift, 5.9 seconds adrift of Button.
It's really a huge, huge test here for Jenson Button. He's got a car which we can see simply isn't fast enough really to win the race here this afternoon. No discredit to BAR, they've done a sensational job this year to move themselves forward up the grid. He challenged Michael Schumacher at Imola. He's had strong points finishes everywhere this season, 3rd in the World Championship, but you can see the car just not able to just do the lap time that Jenson Button wants from it. Meanwhile, Alonso in the Renault, we've seen real pace from them sometimes this year. He's currently lapping about 6 or 7 tenths a lap faster than Jenson Button. And Michael Schumacher, well, he's in a different planet. His last lap, a 1:21.9 compared to Jenson's 1:23.9. 2 seconds a lap faster than Jensen at this stage of the Grand Prix, and if he can keep that going, then Schumacher will be right there very, very soon.
Well, we're heading for a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment, because Button and Alonso are toast with Michael Schumacher's pace and their relative lack of pace at this stage now. And we're on lap 40, and Michael Schumacher then comfortably ahead of Sato and just creaming into Button and Alonso. It's just a question of how quickly Barrichello can get down the road and take a splash and dash towards the end of the race if he needs to.
Well, Ross Brawn's a million times cleverer than I am, and I'm sure he's got this one worked out. Exactly what he's going to do with Rubens Barrichello, where he's going to filter back in again. It's certainly going to be very tight. Barrichello really putting the hammer down now. 1:21.6 on that last lap before his final stop of the afternoon. His third and final stop of the afternoon. Made a very, very early first stop because he was on the wet tyres on a drying track. The only one of the front runners to do so. That was really the story of this Grand Prix at the start. He went for the wet tyres. Teammate Michael Schumacher in third place went for the dry tyres. Had a spin at the second chicane, lost a lot of time. Meanwhile, Button, Alonso, Montoya, Sato all took advantage of Ferrari's problems at the start to grab the control of this race. But as the race has gone on, the pace of the Ferrari has really started to tell more and more. Michael Schumacher has driven absolutely out of his skin here this afternoon, as hard as he's ever driven before to put himself back into contention. And, well, you'd have to say that Button and Alonso are looking like they need to find a lot more speed if they want to stay in contention. Look, there is Schumacher now, the Red Baron, bearing down on the two young guns in front of him. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm actually
Louise. Alonso spun out of second place, stuck in the gravel. We'll come back to you, Louise, but crucial point here in the race. Alonso, and if he gets assistance, he will be penalised. They will not, well, no, he'll be judged as being in a dangerous place there, I think. And they're saying switch it off, and he's saying, no, you push me. He's going to keep, that's it. Engine is off then. I think he would have got away with that, as I say, in a dangerous position. And he's lost it on the way into the second chicane. Highly unusual there for Alonso. And out, I believe, just as we cut away, yes, he switched off the engine, got out of the car.
He's not happy. He wanted a push. He's in a dangerous place, undoubtedly, like Michael Schumacher at the Nürburgring last year. Whoa! A Spanish kick of the right boot. A Real Madrid-style hoof. And he is very, very angry that the marshals wouldn't push him back into the race, because he would have been allowed to get away with it if they had. He obviously didn't fancy it. And I wonder why. We're in Italy. The Ferraris were bearing down on him. I wonder if that's got any bearing on it. Certainly, he's very cross indeed. Now, Louise, unfortunately, we cut across. What have you got to tell us?
Well, I'm stood here with Riccardo Ceccarelli, who's actually the Toyota team doctor, but a very close friend of Jean-Marie. So he's come down to check him over. How is he?
Now he's much better. Only a little bit of a cough, of a lung irritation, but much better. The problem was that when they tried to stop the fire, he was breathing the dust and the gas coming from the fire extinguisher, and that's caused an irritation, and he couldn't breathe at all for 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute, so it was a panic situation. He was trying to jump out just to breathe properly, but after 1 minute was recovering, and now he feels okay.
Thanks, Riccardo.
A pit fire then for Bruni, and that was what he was suffering inside the car. Now this is a question of which Ferrari is going to win this afternoon now. Can Barrichello get out as a very short stop in front of Michael Schumacher to win this Grand Prix? Or will Schumacher beat him down? He's got to sit on the limiter. Where's Schumacher? He'll be coming around in the background, surely. He's tucked up behind traffic. That's good news for Barrichello.
He's tucked up behind Jenson Button, and he comes side by side down the main straight with Jenson Button. Michael Schumacher takes what would have been the lead, but it was not, because Rubens Barrichello managed to get out in front of the pair of them. Christian Klein sees trouble coming up behind him in the mirrors and gets well and truly out of it into the first chicane. Pretty smart move by Klein, because Button and Schumacher were side by side down the straight, and Rubens Barrichello has done enough in this race to stay in front of Michael Schumacher, no matter how hard Schumacher had tried. He knew that Barrichello was in the pits. As he went for Button down the main straight, he thought it might have been for the lead. Schumacher absolutely on the ragged edge here. He's after his teammate Barrichello. There are no team orders in Formula One, and although he's had tremendous support from Barrichello, it's hard to imagine after a drive like today. You look again at Schumacher going down the inside of Button. It's hard to imagine Schumacher not wanting to win here at Monza, just handing the victory to Barrichello.
Interesting tactics from Klein. He just got out of the way and went down the escape road. Clean pass for Michael Schumacher. now the track is coming back. It's not as green as it was after the overnight rain. The Ferraris are just so much faster than anybody else. They've just got this relentless pace that Button and Alonso, before he spun off, did not have an answer to. That's why it's a Ferrari 1-2, plus an astounding drive from Michael Schumacher. But Barrichello then, surely they will not let Michael Schumacher cruise up and attack him at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Well, we've seen them in the past say that you can race each other up to the second round of pit stops, and from then on you hold position. That was certainly the rule last year, the year 2002. We had a little bit of controversy at Austria, remember, when Barrichello pulled over to let Michael Schumacher through. There's no way on God's green earth that's going to happen here this afternoon. But will they hold positions? Will Michael Schumacher be able to attack Rubens Barrichello? Jenson Button's not far behind, is he? The Michelin Mirage of Monza lasted 41 laps here, and that's as long as the guys like Button and Montoya were able to go into this race, leading it, as meanwhile Coulthard with Pitsonia. That's a battle for 6th place. Pitsonia trying to take that 6th place away from David Coulthard. These two also on the Michelin tyre.
Yes, Coulthard now coming under pressure. He's the meat in a Williams sandwich for 5, 6 and 7, and really pushing it as hard as he can. At least his tyre shouldn't be going off, although he's on the really the only main player on a one-stopper after that, going in at the end of the warm-up lap. So that's the best scrap out on the racetrack at the moment. Button just a second and a half behind Michael Schumacher, but surely no answer for Schumacher's pace.
Well, it was good while it lasted. Jenson Button leading the majority of this Grand Prix, now down into 3rd place. The car simply not fast enough. It was asked some very rigorous questions here this afternoon and came up wanting. Jarno Trulli completely missing the apex of the corner, having a terrible afternoon in the Renault, down in 10th place. And interestingly, Martin, some very harsh words from Jarno Trulli yesterday after qualifying, saying ever since I was going out of this team, my car simply doesn't work anymore. Anywhere I go, he's not had a decent points finish for 4 races. And Flavio Briatore, the team boss, says as if we would slow down one of our cars. But certainly Trulli very suspicious about what's going on at Renault. Hard to see how they would possibly want to slow down one of their cars when they're battling with BAR for 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship, and only 8 points between them. But nevertheless, Trulli very unhappy. Barrichello then leading Michael Schumacher at Monza with just 9 laps to go. The closing stages of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. It's been an absolutely tremendous afternoon's entertainment. You're looking at the battle there between 6th place David Coulthard and 7th place Antonio Pizzonia. That's the best scrap in the field at the moment. At the front, Rubens Barrichello is leading Michael Schumacher. There you can see a super slow-mo of Rubens with his team leader, 7 times world champion, right behind him. And Rubens Barrichello yet to win a Grand Prix in 2004. He's played shotgun all season. He's been the bridesmaid. Is today his day to step up and grab the glory and the limelight on Ferrari's home turf, just as he did in that super dominant season of 2002. He won here with Michael Schumacher in 2nd place, with both titles already clinched. It was Rubens' turn to shine. And I think, Martin, you have to ask the question, as the Brazilian flags start to come out, would he have been able to do this kind of thing earlier in the season if he'd been allowed to? Or did Schumacher simply destroy him in the early part of the season? And now, with the championships all decided, Rubens is somehow finding an extra gear.
I think it's not been Rubens' best season. I think he expected to beat Michael this year. Michael came out, as we've seen, stronger than ever before. And when Rubens did have the chance to win the races, it didn't happen for him. And he could have won in Indianapolis, and a bit of a stuttery exit from the pit stop, and 1 or 2 things just didn't play into his hands. But today, this weekend, he's always looked like he's a contender for the victory. He's had the message he wants to hear: Michael will not bother you. And that must be the case, otherwise he'd be down in the low 1 minute 21s, driving for his life at the moment. The pair of them are cruising around just a tiny bit faster than Button in 3rd place, protecting the car. This is the scrap of the race now. Coulthard and Pizzonia going for it, hammer and tongs, both of them looking for strong drives in 2005. Both of them driven very well today. Different strategies, different problems that have faced them. They're just 10 seconds adrift of Montoya in 5th place. So it's a Ferrari 1-2, a BAR Honda 3-4, Montoya 5th. And, well, will it be a 5-6 for Williams if Pizzonia can get past Coulthard? Coulthard doesn't look like he's going to give that away any time soon.
Both drivers looking for a seat in 2005, both contenders for all the available seats at the moment going into next year. So all of this is a shop window for the pair of them. Jock Baumgartner, he has been lapped twice, and he is down in 15th place. We've had quite a few retirements: Alonso, Pantano, Bruni. We had a huge pit fire with Gianmaria Bruni earlier on. Kimi Raikkonen, engine failure. Olivier Panis also stopped early on in the Grand Prix. The early stages, well, we've had rain all morning here at Monza. We had a damp track, but only in certain parts. The first part of the lap was damp, the rest of it was dry. Most of the front runners opted to go on the dry tyres from the grid, except Rubens Barrichello. It was the wrong choice for Barrichello. He made an early getaway, but then soon was swallowed up. Had to make an early pit stop on lap 5. That cost him. Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher, who'd started on slick tyres, spun at the 2nd chicane and dropped down into 15th place on the 1st lap. The story of the Grand Prix for him has been about a fight back, an amazing fight back, from 15th place to 2nd, and he was within a couple of seconds of nicking the win here. But after his 2nd pit stop, Rubens Barrichello able to, the 3rd pit stop, I'm sorry, Rubens Barrichello able to rejoin the Grand Prix just in front of Michael Schumacher and earned the right to win the Italian Grand Prix from Ferrari. He's only 4 laps away from doing that. While Ferrari were having their problems in the early stages, Jenson Button, Juan Montoya and Fernando Alonso grasped the nettle, and they led this race for much of the going. Also Takuma Sato just behind them as well. For a while it looked like they were in the pound seats, but then the pace of these 2 Ferraris really started to show through the middle part and the latter part of this Grand Prix, and they've got it bought and paid for now. They're heading for their 8th 1-2 finish of their season, and the 4th time in their career together that Rubens Barrichello has headed home Michael Schumacher in a Ferrari 1-2.
Of the retirements, and Alonso spinning out at the 2nd chicane. Pantano binned the Jordan at the Parabolica. Bruni with the pit fire. Raikkonen with an engine overheating. Panis spinning also at the 2nd chicane. And Ted has some news for us.
Down at Ferrari, Martin, Barrichello's manager is pacing nervously around the back of the garage. He can't bear to watch these pictures. Barrichello, of course, there was some doubt whether he had to stop again. He does not. They did manage to get just enough fuel in that. I think they're so happy, these mechanics, just by the look of them, that Rubens is finally going to win a race this season.
Yeah, and Rock is in on the racing line. Looks like it probably is on the exit of the first chicane there. I think the only thing that would stop Barrichello winning this race would be an error, but he's not under pressure, so that would be unlikely, or mechanical problems, because Schumacher's just pacing himself nicely within a second of the lead Ferrari. So it'll be a well-deserved victory. I mean, it was Michael who made the mistake, wasn't it? Michael who spun off. Rubens, I thought, was overcautious on the intermediates, but it's played into his hands pretty nicely. It's worked out well for him, because the track came to the Ferraris and their Bridgestones. The overnight rain, there'd been some Porsche race, a Formula 3000 race. The track would have been pretty slippery and green, and they seemed relatively nowhere, didn't they? But as the track has gripped up, rubbered in, the Michelin runners, such as Button there, have tended to fall away. Alonso fell off, and there's Sato then in 4th place at the moment. Still no... the Jaguar then of Clean. Where's Clean at the moment? Down in 13th. He had a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So the point scorers at the moment: Barrichello, Michael Schumacher, Button 3rd, Sato 4th, Montoya 5th, Coulthard just 7 seconds behind Montoya now in 6th, with Pitzonia 0.6 behind Coulthard 7th, and Fisichella another solid drive in 8th, scoring the final point at the moment.
And crucially, Jenson Button, a very, very strong performance for him this afternoon. He's just 9 seconds behind race leader Rubens Barrichello, heading for his personal 8th podium of the season. But crucially, with teammate Takuma Sato tucked up right behind him, likely to score 5 points this afternoon, and neither of the Renaults are in the points here this afternoon. This is going to move the BAR Honda team up into 2nd place in the Constructors' Championship. What an extraordinary achievement for them, as we look at, a big tangle there between Pitzonia and David Coulthard.
Right, so broken bodywork there on Coulthard's car. Be amazing if he hasn't got broken suspension too. That looked, we only saw the end of it, but it looked rather adventurous, didn't it? Pitzonia coming in quite late there. Hopefully we'll see a replay. Is Coulthard still going? He's still recording sector times out there, so it looks like the answer is yes. There's a squabble to watch as the Ferrari team move then up onto the pit wall. Coulthard's gone through the 2nd sector ahead of Pitzonia, so he did manage to stay on track. Good solid suspension there on the back of Coulthard's car.
Certainly was. 2nd race in succession that Coulthard has had an incident-filled closing stages. Remember, Spa hit Clean, had a puncture, everything that could happen to David Coulthard in the closing stages there. Here again, he's been rammed from the back by Antonio Pitzonia. They're 6th and 7th, and well, they've got just one more lap to go. The Ferraris at the front. This was meant to be a celebration party for that historic 14th Constructors' title, and well, the 7th Drivers' Championship for Michael Schumacher, and it's been just that. After they kept their public and their fans on the edge of their seats in the early stages of the Grand Prix, but then the pace of the Ferraris this season simply too much through the Grand Prix, and they managed to grab 1 and 2.
What a cracking race. Monza's not always the most exciting, isn't it? Unless you do get a bit of inclement weather, but this one has just been full on. We had 4 cars look like they could win it, then it turned into 5, and we weren't including Michael Schumacher at that point, but we were including Barrichello,
who crosses the line to win his first Grand Prix of the season. Michael Schumacher goes across to salute the Ferrari mechanics. That is the first win since Suzuka last year for Rubens Barrichello, and it tastes so sweet. Jenson Button is absolutely delighted from the looks of things. Either that or he's out of fuel. No, he's delighted. In 3rd place, his 8th podium finish of the season, and most importantly, as I was just saying, BAR Honda move ahead of Renault in the Constructors' Championship, with just China, Japan and Brazil still to go. All races where BAR Honda fancy their chances, so they're on target, despite the bittersweet taste of Button wanting to leave the team at the end of the season, for a historic achievement for them, 2nd place. But what about this man, Rubens Barrichello, 32 years of age. It's his 8th career victory. It seems he's been around for such a long time, always the bridesmaid and so rarely the bride, but today he come up smelling of roses.
Yes, the one Ferrari driver that will talk to F1 ITV. We're always struggling to get Michael to speak to the British fans. Rubens always the most helpful, you'd have to say, of any of the drivers, and it's a lot of pleasure to see him taking a well-deserved victory. He got the job done. Jarno Trulli down in 10th place, does the fastest first sector of anybody in the entire Grand Prix. Who did he come as? What on earth is he doing?
Well, as I was saying before, he's unhappy with what's going on at Renault. Says his car just feels strange. Some people are saying that, well, maybe it's just inside his head that's gone a bit mushy since it's been announced that he's leaving the team at the end of the season. I couldn't possibly comment on that, but certainly some very bad feelings. And it's led, as you can see, with Alonso, his car being hoisted away, and Trulli finishing out of the points. It's led to Renault giving up that second place in the Constructors. So that's one of the big stories coming out of this weekend, alongside the Ferrari 1-2 formation finish and the tears. The second time he's won the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, and this one will taste very sweet because he really won this purely on merit.
So Ferrari 1-2 then, as you've seen, Button for his 8th podium of the season and of his career, of course. 3rd, Sato solid 4th. So 2 Ferraris, 2 PRs, Montoya 5th, and Coulthard hanging on to spoil the Williams 5 and 6. Coulthard then with a very solid drive. He'll be pleased with that one, I think. Pizzonia, though, kept him honest right to the line. Just 0.3 of a second behind him for 7th. And Fisichella did pull 8th place out of the bag and 1 World Championship point.
Who knows? If it had been dry, it might have been the fastest Grand Prix ever as well. But either way, it's given us tremendous entertainment here this afternoon at Monza. The Ferrari flags fly. Not an enormous crowd here this afternoon. Ticket price is very high here at Monza. Over £250 for a grandstand seat on the main straight. But those who did come have seen a tremendous spectacle. And Martin, always a challenge to ask you after an exciting race like that who your driver of the day is. So many contenders. Michael Schumacher's fight back, Barrichello's steadiness and consistency. Jenson Button really trying hard with the cutlass between his teeth to take this one. Who's your driver of the day?
Well, as you say, so many contenders. I think Coulthard definitely a contender there, and Montoya quite quiet actually, didn't he? Sato didn't quite have the raw pace. You say Button went well. Michael Schumacher, the fastest man on the racetrack by and large through the Grand Prix, but he did spin off, and Rubens made the brave choice actually of putting those inters on, and it looked horrible after about lap 4, didn't it? He kept his head, won the Grand Prix. My driver of the day.
Rubens Barrichello, driver of the day. I haven't said that too many times this season. It's been quite a quiet championship for Rubens Barrichello, constantly in the shadow of Michael Schumacher. 2nd place in Australia, 2nd in Bahrain, 2nd also in Spain, the Nürburgring, Canada, United States, where Schumacher nicked the lead off him from the restart. Barrichello on pole on that occasion, but thinking he might win it, but Schumacher was too canny for him on the day. He's finished every Grand Prix this year, all but one of them in the points, and finally, he's got the victory he so richly deserves. I make no apology for being ecstatic when Rubens wins a race. He's one of the nicest people in Formula One, and when he drives like this, as he did at Silverstone last year, and in Japan last year as well, there's very few in Formula One who can touch him for quality and style and sheer pace and bravery.
So as we said earlier on, BAR moving up into 2nd place in the Constructors' World Championship. How much money would you put on that a year ago, James?
Absolutely. Well, they were pretty excited over the winter. They thought they'd found something, and they weren't wrong. There's Gabriella Della Colli, who is the race engineer of Rubens Barrichello, formerly with the Jordan team, made the move across. And those Brazilian girls have had a really good afternoon. They're going to party long into the night, aren't they? The traditional scenes then on the main straight here at Monza. That was a scene of rain and puddles mid-morning here. A lot of long faces at Monza, a lot of people with their Pacamacs, all wondering what they were doing here, nicking keep right or keep left signs and marker boards. A few mementos to take away from the day.
This is a brilliantly effective podium here, as you can read in my new book that's coming out in October. But I was underneath it, and just a couple of days ago looking at it, thinking, I wonder what they've done there. That might be useful at other racetracks. It's a horrible looking thing underneath there. It sort of looks like a bit of angle iron and some dodgy welding, but it gets the drivers out into the pack of ecstatic Ferrari fans, and it really is a wonderful atmosphere down there.
World champions, it says on the flag. The helicopter shots, the people, the crowd, as I say, not as many as we've seen in previous years. Back in 2000, when the Formula One World Championship had been a dream that Ferrari had chased in vain for 21 years. That brought 160,000 people to Monza, all looking to share in that moment. But, well, here this afternoon, Ferrari have put aside the grey clouds. They've seen the silver linings. And this little fella's got some memories that'll stay with him for a long time, as they will with all of us, I think. That was, without doubt, we've had a few good Grand Prix, and that was right up there amongst the best of them. Spa was good, Silverstone was good, Bahrain was a good race. Hopefully China in 2 weeks' time. Brand new circuit in Shanghai will bring us some thrills and spills as well. Looking forward to going there. Tremendous logistical exercise getting the Formula One fraternity into China. A lot of red tape, as you can imagine. A lot of head scratching going on, but from what I've seen of the track, it's going to be certainly going to be a good race.
Television helicopter flying completely in the avoid curve, I would imagine, of where you should be with I hope it's a twin loitering over there. But anyway, he's beginning to pull out now, and there is the podium platform we were telling you about.
Little delay getting the drivers out onto the podium. Obviously, shortage of Kleenex for Rubens Barrichello back there behind the scenes. Here he comes. Yes! Schumacher letting Barrichello soak it up, letting him go out first and have his moment. That shows you a little bit of the team spirit. There's a lot said about this relationship in this team, a lot said about how it's all structured to make Schumacher win. Barrichello has to play shotgun. I don't think we'll ever really know the truth of what's in Barrichello's contract, but there's no doubt at all on a day like today that they are a team. The most experienced team in Formula One, the oldest team in Formula One, and the most successful.
Pole position, fastest race lap, new lap record. The victor in a Ferrari at Monza, his 8th Grand Prix victory. Can it get any better than that, James?
No, it's the hat-trick they all dream of. His compatriot Ronaldo scored a few of them, and today Rubens has scored big time here at Monza. His 8th career victory. An emotional hug for teammate Michael Schumacher, who really drove magnificently this afternoon. Constructors' trophy for his race engineer.
Not often you see Michael happy with second place, but he looks genuinely happy up there, doesn't he?
Yeah, what a contrast to 2 weeks ago in Spa. Won the championship, but not happy to finish second to Kimi Raikkonen on the day. But here, he's enjoyed himself. He's driving for pleasure now. The championship's decided. He certainly would have got a lot of pleasure out of this afternoon's race. And what about Jenson Button? His 8th podium of the season, a sporting cheer from the Italian fans for him. Terrific drive for him, led most of this Grand Prix, let's not forget. And, well, he did what he could. The car just wasn't quick enough for him on the day, but he'll have his day in the future, no doubt about that.
Which overalls will he be wearing next year? Apparently they're meeting, the Contract Recognition Board meeting while we're in China, so we should find out soon, hopefully, if it doesn't go to the law courts.
Well, the Tifosi came here to celebrate the 2 World Championships. The 2 drivers, they gave them a bit of a scare at the start. Looked as though they were handing it to the young guns like Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso, but class paid out in the end. It's another Ferrari 1-2. Rubens hits the gold, and we'll see you 2 weeks from now in Shanghai, China, Formula One's Brave New Dawn.